My name is Willie Augustine, and I'll be going over the European policy on unwanted fish. They went from the European Economic Community, which was a coalition of 6 European nations, to the bureaucrats in Brussels under the new Common Fisheries Policy, CFP. Discarding in CFP is pretty much the practice of returning unwanted catch to the sea, whether they are dead or alive. Most of them are undersized. Fishermen want to keep the bigger, better quality fish. Fishermen Fishing is mostly done in smaller boats, and the CFP is probably going over a makeover right now since they do it every decade. I could not find any 2020 findings. Most of my references were from 2019 and on. It's just basically bycatch being discarded into the ocean due to market demand. Market demand, I thought of aquarium fish and vegetables that are weirdly shaped that aren't being marketed to the public. I'll be going over more of shellfish later, but imagine if you're fishing for 3 different species. Let's say you caught enough halibut. Once you catch your halibut quota, the other halibut that you catch, you must return back to the sea, whether they're dead or alive. According to the American Association for the Advancement of Science, I'm sure it varies, but toss unwanted made as much as 20% of the global catch. And in January 2019, this new policy banned the wasteful practice. There is a belief that it'll boost stocks and improve fishing efficiency, although it may compromise data and bring hardship to the industry. Short term, fish are still tossing unwanted fish, just like the fisherman here is throwing cod back into the ocean. This campaign was started by celebrity chef Hugh Fernley Whittingstall. I haven't heard of him, but he argued that the EU's quota system meant fishermen were compelled to discard fish that were too young, overfished, or species for which they did not have a quota. All fish must be landed to shore, although fish are still being discarded, and fishermen are asking themselves if it's affordable to fish. Landing obligations. In September 2019, only 28 tons were landed as discards. The EU was expecting more than that, and the new policy states that tossings must be recorded, but who knows what the fishermen are actually recording. On the bright side, there are advancements in gear where nets can avoid other fish stocks. And another great thing that went on was a collaborative project called Discardless that went from 2015 to 2019, aiming to provide for better data collection, discard mitigation strategies, and innovative gear technologies, onboard and Azure solutions for landed species, and communication of the results to users. Discardless had interviews from Iceland all the way to Greece. And these fishermen had different types of gear: single and twin rig trawlers, prawn trawlers, sei netters, gill and trammel nets, bottom, deep water hand lines, and long lines. Three of the most important questions that I thought were issues relating to the fishermen's response to the landing obligation regulations, what they saw as the causes of the discarding and levels of that, and the methods of mitigating the impacts of the landing obligation in their day-to-day operations. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the answers or the actual interviews. Um, Not all species are going to be mentioned due to time, but haddock and whiting go unused in a cod fishery. Although there are separator trawls, like I've mentioned earlier, new technology. And Norway lobster returned and typically survive. Another species you could see here in the slide. Um, they also wanted to have cameras on board to enforce the new policy, but due to privacy, they really couldn't do anything about cameras. And mitigations on landmark fisheries bill. Quoting directly from one of the articles, quota restrictions in choke species were identified as key drivers of discarding in Ireland, France, Denmark, and Azores, and the Balearics. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Anyways, a lot of the gear, they increased the mesh sizes, which in turn they were more selective of fish that they were targeting. They went from long lining to hand lining, and this is a more selective and cost-effective fishery. Um, they also try to avoid spawning grounds, and they are constantly moving stocks and info sharing. These are just a few mitigations because there are so many other fishing grounds to cover in the European Union. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me. Thank you.